Good evening unto you. Alright, so this one's interesting, and in a good way. Sometimes when I say that, it always comes out that it's interesting in a bad way. This one's interesting in a good way. This is one of the more interesting films that I've seen all year, kind of reinvigorating my belief in the small independent movie and what it can be. You know, this one isn't pretentious. It's not, not disgusting. It's not stupid. It doesn't feature horrible people, at least not in the main vein. It actually paints a very interesting, I keep using that word for this, sorry, it's late, I'm tired, a fascinating portrait of a married couple and the very complex relationship that they've established, and kind of putting a few more layers on top of it for metaphor and symbolism there. Okay, so if you haven't heard of this one, so Glenn Close and Jonathan Pryce are a married couple. Jonathan Pryce is this world-renowned author. You know, one of these, you're the greatest ever, your pros are this, your pros are that, yada, yada, yada. And he, at the beginning of the film, he gets the call that he's going to be receiving the Nobel Prize for Literature. Okay? So he and Glenn Close and their son go to Stockholm to, get the award, and along the way, we learn some things and some other things. I don't want to... Alright, there's going to be spoilers here, so I'm just going to throw the spoiler warning up now. So, in a nutshell, which is kind of funny since walnuts play kind of a part in this. So, in a nutshell, it's a good movie, well acted, well directed, interesting dynamics, and again, plays a lot with very complex relationships, which I really appreciated. So go see it. That's the nutshell version. So let's talk about it a little bit more in depth. So what it comes out as is that all these years, Glenn Close has not so much been ghostwriting for him. She hasn't been writing the whole stories and coming and just putting it under his name. He comes up with the ideas and the general outline for the stories, and she goes back and actually writes them up because she's a better writer than he is, but he's the idea man. But and they do some flashback stuff to kind of nail this home, because she was learning to write and started writing back in the day, and women will never be published, they'll never read anything you write, yada yada yada. So she's been satisfied to kind of be published under his name all this time. And so now he's being honored and not her. And it's this thing where it's starting to kind of get to her that, she has to be the doting wife, the ever-present, stability and the power behind the throne kind of thing. Without getting any of the praise or the recognition, and it's starting to eat at her. Plus, it doesn't help that, throughout all this, Jonathan Pryce's character has begun to believe the hype and believes that he is, responsible for it all and everything. And so his ego's getting a little carried away. She's pissed at not getting recognition, and the whole thing is kind of this blow up. So what's really fascinating about this film, again, like I say, is that it really examines the complexity of their relationships. From the trailers and from the early goings of this film, you really think you know where it's going to go. You really think that it's going to be just another, asshole husband who doesn't appreciate his wife, and he's had all these affairs, which he has, and, all this. And even when it starts to come out that there's this belief that, he may not be the true author of his work, you think that it's going to go with she's been writing the whole things for him, and, he's just a liar and a jackass. But to the film's credit, and this is where you have a more mature filmmaker who's willing to deal with some more mature themes and whatnot, it doesn't just go that route. The film presents both of them, even though we're supposed to see it through Glenn Close's eyes, and clearly she's supposed to be the audience POV character and the one we're supposed to sympathize with. The film does not villainize Jonathan Pryce's character. It doesn't make him, the typical asshole husband. The film is confident enough and mature enough to acknowledge that that both of them are at fault. Both of them have done bad things. Both of them have a hand in the, in the lie that they have created, in the lie that they have lived. For instance, Jonathan Pryce's character has taken all the credit for all of this. Glenn Close was fine going along with it for so many years. She got her stuff published. She was fine going with it when it was getting published and all this, but, so it's this thing of, and again, it wasn't a thing where she did everything and he did nothing. Like I say, he came up with the ideas, he came up with the basic story, and then she went back and punched it up, So the film is confident enough, and again, mature enough. I think this is something that people miss in films with younger actors and younger protagonists, is that people are complex. They have good and bad aspects to their personality, and you don't have to be just the holier-than-thou, this, that, and the other thing to be the protagonist. You can have flaws, you can be at fault for the issues, and it's an interesting thing just how much they use that subtlety, use the subtext and all, to tell the story of this very complicated marriage. So the story and the direction is very good, and again, mature is the word I want to use, and not just in the terms of the actors being older, but in the terms that it faces the reality of relationships. This is one of the first movies I've seen in a while where I truly felt like I was watching fully realized three-dimensional characters interact. These were real people. Not all good, not all bad. Even though they do frame Jonathan Pryce's character in a little bit more negative light. I don't know if that's because, again, Glenn Close's character is supposed to be our main point of view character, or if it's that kind of thing to kind of sell us on the lie that, that they're kind of going for a less interesting story, that whole he's just a philandering husband. So I don't know if they framed everything with him in some of those early scenes just to kind of throw us off the scent or what. But anyway, I really loved the characters in this, and you got to give it up for Glenn Close and Jonathan Pryce, who do all the heavy lifting and do a lot of great work together. I've often felt Meryl Streep is overrated. Not often thought. I think Meryl Streep is overrated. But I have never had a problem with Glenn Close. I think Glenn Close truly is that damn good. And just a magnetic personality and a truly original screen presence. So it's always, when you're watching her, you're really watching someone who knows their craft, and it shows in this movie. And Jonathan Pryce is one of those character actors I've loved for a long time. I've loved Jonathan Pryce ever since I saw him in as Elliot Carver in Tomorrow Never Dies. He's always just been one of those character actors that when I see him, I'm like, yay, it's him. Whether he's playing the good guy, the bad guy, or the father, or whatever. And he's really good here. He's got the charisma. He's got the, that he can make this guy as much of a jerk as you kind of want to paint him as, but you can see that he's not a bad man. He's done bad things, but he's not a bad man. He's not a bad person. So the two of them, just A-list performances from both of them. It's really great. And it's excellent to see Christian Slater in this. Christian Slater plays like this biographer who's trying to write the biography of Jonathan Pryce, but Jonathan Pryce keeps shooting him down, and he starts to uncover all of these things, or thinks he uncovers all these things. So he's kind of the little devil that's pushing everything along and kind of pouring gasoline on the fire. I've always liked Christian Slater as an actor. I think he's, his personal problems and kind of that, he had kind of the same problems as a lot of those kids, he's not a kid anymore, but kids of that age, back when he was big, he had some of the problems that all of them had, but his screen presence again was always very unique and very playful and fun. I've always liked the things I've seen Christian Slater in, and he's another one that you haven't seen in a lot of movies as of late. You don't hear from Christian Slater that much. He had a really great couple guest spots on Archer a few years back. Those were great. I loved those. I loved when he was on Archer. But in terms of films, you haven't seen him in a while, and he's back here, and he's really good. He's really good. He is. He's at the same time earnest and slimy, and you never know if where he's going and what he wants, or just if he's just trying to stir up trouble, if he's just trying to get revenge, or if he really thinks he's on to something. So it's a very subtle, very fun role for him, and it was really great to see him back. I love Christian Slater. No movie is perfect, and this one certainly isn't, in that while those three performers, veteran performers, tried and true, do a great job, some of the other actors don't do as good a job. And I think that's because their characters aren't as flushed out and interesting as these other ones. So you of course have the son, you have Glenn Close and Jonathan Pryce's son, who of course wants to be a writer, but his dad doesn't like his stuff. His dad doesn't come down and tell him he's the greatest writer ever, for the first thing he ever wrote, and of course that makes him a sourpuss. That character is just very, very stereotypical, and doesn't ever turn it around and turn the stereotype on its head, or do something different with our preconceptions of a character like that, like the other ones do. He's just the sulky, would-be predecessor son who's mad because daddy never told him he was special. And there's not... Yeah, it's just not a good performance and not a good character. They do several flashbacks in this. For what reason, I'm not entirely sure, because the flashbacks are pretty... Except for one. The flashbacks are pretty unnecessary. I don't think you really needed them, but it flashes back to them as young couple in love, how they got together, and kind of what all kind of led to them eventually collaborating, as Jonathan Pryce puts it. The young actress, and I think this is her first movie because the credits said introducing Annie, whatever her last name is. The young actress who's playing a young Glenn Close does a very good job. A very good job, and very subtle things that you could tell it was supposed to be a younger version of the character. Looked enough like her that you could see it, but it was more just the little things, the inflections, the tilts of the head, that kind of mirrored what Glenn Close was doing in the present. So that young lady did an excellent job. The young man they got to play Jonathan Pryce as a younger man, he was not as good. His performance seemed very wooden. And okay, so Jonathan Pryce in the present, as this guy who's lived this life, has, like I say, a natural charisma and a natural just way of handling a crowd and talking to people, so that you could see that he's playing a part. He's playing this part of this great writer, even though he at worst he's not a great writer, and at best he's only maybe 25% of a great writer. But he's playing the part really well. He's charming. He's energetic. Again, charismatic. The guy playing him as a younger man comes off as a snake oil salesman. all right, comes off as a guy, every line he gives, he just sounds full of shit. You know, it doesn't gel. And you can say that, oh, well, he's younger, so he doesn't, he hasn't. No. Because, one of the things, oh, Mr. Chirpy fell over. I didn't notice that. I'm sorry, Mr. Chirpy. There we go. Good thing we're at a stoplight. There we are, buddy. No, it's not a matter of the character not having grown into, that ability to lie, as much as it is the actor just isn't as good as Jonathan Pryce and doesn't have that, again, buzzwords, that charisma to pull it off. So yeah, that performance was not as good. Those performances kind of pulled me out of it. But, that being said, and that all being true, the main actors, the main three, really pull it out and really come to play and really delve into the inner workings of these characters and paint for you, again, three very fully realized people. And it's very rare to see that. I haven't seen a movie like that where I felt like the characters were people with dimensions and flaws and virtues in a really long time. I can't even remember this year if I've seen one like that. So it's really wonderful to see a movie like that. I can't think of much else to say on this one. So, and you can't think of much else to say, there's only one thing to say. So, final grade for The Wife. I'm going to give it a solid A. Not an A+, not an A-. I'm going to give it a solid A. For the simple fact, and this is a dumb way to characterize this, but it's kind of how part of what goes into this grading, aside from just gut reaction. But one of the things that go into some of these grades are, would I watch it again? Or, for me, would I buy it? Would I buy it on DVD? Because yes, I still buy DVDs, tell me the whole thing about streaming, like I haven't heard it before. But, I buy things on DVD because I want to rewatch them again. I really like the movie, I like the acting, the story, and all that. So the question of, would I buy this one to watch again? And while it's good, while it's great, I don't think I would, because I think once I've seen it, I've kind of seen it. I don't think there's much more to discover. So that's kind of a backhanded way to end this. So let's pretend that last sentence didn't happen, and just kind of leave on, this is a very good movie. This is a tour de force of great acting, strong writing, subtle directing. And for a film like this, I really appreciate subtle directing. The director does not call attention to themselves or try to, prove how artistic and shit they are, like some of these other independent or smaller movies that I've seen. So nice subtle directing, and overall just one of the more fulfilling experiences I've had at a movie in 2018. I haven't had something like this in quite some time. So yay, this movie. All right, so that'll do it for this one. I hope you enjoy it. Got a couple other reviews hopefully coming up this weekend and I'm hoping I'm not getting sick. Hoping to do some retro reviews coming up. So I'm looking forward to that. So until next time, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.